Good evening and welcome to our presentation, Journey Through Trauma, Exploring Healing Through the Five Senses. This presentation will cover what is trauma, what is the neuroscience of trauma, the five senses and neuroscience, the integrative approach, and finally, exploring creative therapies and how we can successfully adapt techniques to use them in the counselling room. Through our research, we have used the Vital Connections integrative model and have included examples in the presentation from person-centred, CBT, psychodynamic, existential and the Christian perspectives. We will give some examples in our presentation, but a more detailed explanation can be found in our research paper. Carol Rogers' person-centred theory promotes the therapeutic relationship as being the cornerstone in effective counselling. As counsellors, we must develop and maintain that relationship through the core conditions of empathy, unconditional positive regard and congruence, always remembering to be present with the client on their journey through trauma. The Christian perspective claims that man is made in the image of God and as such shares some of his characteristics. That as God is a creator, so too is man creative. Creative therapies can help unlock that which is hidden in the psyche, supporting Freud's psychodynamic approach, and can help communicate thoughts, feelings and emotions through images that words cannot always explain. In the image, we can see the baby mirroring the emotions felt in the mother, where science and the use of neuroimaging techniques has caught up with Christian belief, expressed in the verse, "We are fearfully and wonderfully made." Questions asked about the meaning of life and a sense of hope or hopelessness can also be explored through the existential perspective. And finally, in line with the CBT, the Christian perspective portrays an alternative way of thinking, acknowledging that how a person thinks can affect their view of sense of worth, value and worth, believing that this can be altered through the transformation of the mind, a journey navigated using an integrative approach to enable the client to move forward. So what does the research show? The left-hand side of the brain is analytical, logical, practical, whereas the right-hand side is creative, passionate and colourful. It used to be thought that the pathways to the brain were fixed after childhood, but again, neuroscience can now show us that a process called neuroplasticity allows the injured brain to rewire through proper rehabilitation. There is evidence to suggest that many creative techniques can add another dimension to counselling techniques and have been proven to help some clients. We will now make links with the senses, touch, sound, smell, taste and sight, and look at some of these therapies.
What is trauma? Psychological trauma occurs when an event causes feelings of intense fear, helplessness, loss of control, and the threat of death. The images, sounds, smells, and tastes of that event lock into the brain. The feelings and sensations generated imprint into the body, and the sense of self and identity are violated. This famous picture captures the sense of what trauma is like. Most people recover from traumatic experiences and can function normally within a few days to a few weeks. However, some people go on to have persistent difficulties, which can last for a long time. They can turn up in the counselling room with complaints of depression, anxiety, poor relationships, and other issues. This acronym of trauma can remind us of the symptoms: T for the event, R for re-experience of the traumatic event, such as intrusive flashbacks in mind and body, or recurrent nightmares. A for avoidant behaviors, for instance, fear of flying because there is no escape route. U for unable to function. Simple activities such as sleeping through the night or going out for a walk become impossible. M, symptoms have lasted for at least a month. And A for arousal or hyperarousal and hypervigilance, where a client always feels on edge, anxious, and constant watch for danger. The normal responses, fight, flight, or freeze to a stressful situation, are disrupted by trauma. We are going to explore how creative therapies through the 5 senses may help clients in their journey to healing and wholeness. We become aware of our bodies through constant stimulation and feedback from the body to the brain. Proprioceptors in our muscles and joints send messages to the brain to tell us of their position. Our skin registers pressure and texture, and pain receptors discern different types of pain. Our brain filters all these stimuli and give us the overall feeling of body experience and awareness, such as wind rushing through our hair or straining and pushing towards the finish line in a race. After trauma, these pathways of body awareness are broken. So clients complain they don't feel alive or that their bodies don't belong to them. They also feel disconnected from family, friends, and their community. Speaking about touch. Starting with touch, techniques such as massage and somatic experiencing enable clients to reconnect with their bodies, to become aware of tensions in different muscle groups, and to understand how emotion and stress affect their bodies. Mindfulness, yoga, and qigong allow people to feel where they are in their bodies. Physical and breathing exercises give them control over mind and body, and they gain a sense of agency. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is a therapy in which clients move their eyes repetitively whilst thinking of traumatic memories. During this, their brains process the trauma into the memory banks, so enabling clients to move on in their healing journey. Rhythmic long-distance walking allows clients to connect with their bodies and their environment and brings healing naturally. Some of the above therapies require specialist training and may not be suitable within the counselling room. But clients can be taught grounding techniques such as counting up to 10 or self-soothing exercises, self-hugging, or applying scented hand creams within the counselling room to cope with distress and anxiety. Many of these physical therapies can be beneficial in a client's journey through trauma. They rewire the unarticulated and unexpressed emotions back into the brain, allowing them to be processed. And more evidence is coming to light about the neuroplasticity of the brain. With this, there is greater hope that clients can be healed from trauma and become whole as they take advantage of the counselling room and creative therapies.
The senses of smell and taste. These 2 senses are closely connected, but smell is dominant. I'll demonstrate. Slice lemon. Holding my nose, I pop the lemon onto the tongue. No taste. Releasing the nose and repeat. I can taste the lemon. You too can do this at home. Neuroscience of smell. The sense of smell or olfaction occurs when the odour molecules are breathed in through the nose, dissolve in the moist nasal lining, and bind onto the smell receptors, which generate a signal or impulse. These signals are passed along tiny nerve fibres called axons. Many thousands of these axons together make up the olfactory nerve. This converges on the olfactory bulb, which comprises of 2 areas in the brain, one for each nostril, sitting right behind the eyes. The olfactory bulb processes these signals and passes the information to the brain's olfactory cortex or limbic system. Neuroscientists have discovered that the neural tissue of the olfactory bulb undergoes neurogenesis. This is where new neurons, having migrated from the subventricular zone of the brain as stem cells, form new connections, neurogenesis. Research into these neural stem cells is ongoing. The limbic system controls mood, memory, behavior and emotion, and it plays a major role in this. It's often regarded as being the primal or primitive brain because these same structures were present in the first mammals. Importantly, this leads to understanding why smell plays such a significant role in our memory, mood, and emotions. The perfume industry uses smell and fragrances to evoke emotion and moods such as power, desire, vitality, and relaxation. These emotions are distinctly individual. This same perfume to one person is powerful, aromatic, and heady, whilst to another it's overpowering, sickly sweet. We all have memories that are strongly evoked by the taste and smell of freshly baked bread or flaky croissants or chocolate. These memories, often from childhood, throw you right back into experiencing the same emotions, however wonderful, bad, or traumatic they are. These memories and emotions are immediate, individual, and very specific. For me, Palmer violets. That smell hits me with my loving grandma, her perfume. Prawns, however, these had been defrosting in the boot of my car for 2 weeks. Oh, I couldn't eat prawns for years, actually. Now, the green latex rubber gas mask. At the age of 3, having anaesthesia for surgery in hospital, I remember thrashing my arms and legs around, being held tight down. Nowadays, children's face masks now have a pleasant smell. Please be aware during counselling and this journey through trauma that a particular smell could be a trigger to a traumatic memory. The power of the past and psychodynamic theory. This sunflower and child, memories that can be evoked. Similarly, asking the client by looking at a picture similar to this, what emotions are evoked in you? What memories can you smell?
So I'm going to be covering neuroscience and the sense of hearing. So why look at sound? As you see here, the impact of music is far-reaching, tapping into memory, motor functions. It enhances our learning. It can influence mood, our sense of community and trust, and even our biology. Scientists find that every cell in our body has a sound receptor, an antenna that responds to vibration. Sound is more than what we hear. It is a frequency, and this includes our thoughts. We are quite literally wired for sound. This schematic slide shows the transformational nature of sound and matter. Our bodies are continuously vibrating. Just to give you an idea of what schematics show, here is a healthy cell on the left and an unhealthy cell on the right. So why might this matter? Well, Masaru Emoto is a Japanese scientist, and chances are that you have heard or seen some of his work, namely the theory that water can understand and retain the energy of human intention. Water crystals spoken over and frozen show something quite fascinating. On the word spoken, "you fool," it leaves a distorted and ugly crystal. And then on the right, "thank you," leaving a quite beautiful crystal. So our body is made up of approximately 70% water, dependent on age. So sound has a huge impact, whether it is spoken, or what we think, or the sounds that we hear. So sound and music in therapy. We need more training to be a music therapist, but we can use music in a psychodynamic way. We could allow our client to listen to music and engage in their imagination. I used to listen to classical music and make up my own stories. And you could do this then explore with a client. Or you could invite a client to bring memorable music for them to listen to with you together, and explore in maybe a more CBT approach what the thoughts are that they have in their mind. You could encourage a client to make a playlist to help mood, or even within a grieving process, making sure that the playlist ends on a more uplifting tone. This can be very healing. The narrative therapy, this is the internal dialogue and sound. Each dot here represents an event in our life. As our client talks to us, we may only hear a very thin story, which is very important to be heard. But what is also important is we look to the inferred and wider view, which will include both highs and lows, so that the client's life can be seen as a wide and beautiful tapestry. We reframe our story, and this can be very important, to include such things as celebrations, moments of pride, connection, times of overcoming, all help to go forward into a more optimistic future. The truth is, there is a plethora of events that shape the incredible life that we have. Our clients' lives also will show that diversity, and how they view it is incredibly important.
We will now look at neuroscience and art therapy. Art therapy incorporates creative methods of expression through visual arts media. It is important that the client feels in a place of safety to explore in a creative way. It allows us to reframe experiences, organise thoughts, and gain personal insights. Art therapy has gained popularity because it combines free artistic expression with the potential for significant therapeutic intervention. Research shows that art therapy can help unlock the effects of trauma, allowing the individual to communicate thoughts, feelings, and events that they may not even remember. There are many benefits, as we can see from the slide. Our brains sees and engages with the art, whether the client has created it or it just looks at the photographs. We can increase positivity, it can relieve stress, it can help people cope for the future. So, we are not experts. This has been said before, and we must remember there are those who are experts and have done extra qualifications, and it may be that we signpost our clients to these trained art therapists. But we can adapt some of the techniques. We can be curious. We can ask, what does this mean? What does the absence of colour or the use of colour mean? We can talk about the space or the choice in shapes. For example, in an image such as we have here, we might ask about the dominant colours of orange and blue. Is there a significance? When working with one client, we noticed that the colour blue was dominant over several weeks. When I asked about that, the client said that she paused and she thought, and she started to cry. The colour blue was significant. It had been the colour of the bedspread in her bed at boarding school where she had suffered abuse as a child. Using art therapy is not new. It has been around since the Paleolithic era, where trauma was depicted in art and caves. It comes in many different forms, and these are only just some of them. Using clay can also combine touch and smell, mask making, and also abstract colour. Be careful not to assume that the bright colours, the primary colours of yellow might stand for hope. It is what it means to the client. It is their story. Some clients might be reluctant participants. They might feel that they are not creative. They may have memories of being judged for lack of talent or perceived inability. They might also have been sent by school or employers. One simplistic technique that we can use, either drawn by the client in the counselling room or selected from images, is emojis. These can be used as indicators as to how a client is feeling, how they want to feel, and how that can be achieved through incremental goals. Used successfully with CBT goal setting techniques to getting from sad to happy or angry to calm. Even a blank sheet of paper can be used. Counsellors can be curious about the lack of colour, the use of space. In this black image here, it might be significant to the client, speaking of death or despair, especially particularly through this global pandemic. The existential perspective could be explored as the client asks, what is the point? And questions the meaning of human existence. Art and music. Exploration through art can be used as a secure holding environment where clients can explore a hidden world of pain, abuse and trauma that can reveal a rich picture of the inner life. This could be explored by looking at patterns as a client has drawn the images that you could show the client. The counsellor could play different genres of music, invite the client to use a pencil to draw what you hear. Don't assume that shapes or patterns relate to a particular event, or that jagged edges, for example, mean anger, and smoother patterns like the leaves that we can see here mean happier times. Stay with the metaphor. It is what the client means it to mean. In summary, we have considered ways of exploring healing through the 5 senses, using creative therapies that can be adapted for use in the counselling room, enabling the client to use art to express feelings, emotions, events on their journey through trauma. More detailed information can be found in our research project, but if you have any questions or comments, we will do our very best to answer them. Thank you for listening.